I'd like to speak to the topic of what men want. The reason for this being that a lot of ladies often say, I do not know what men want. There is, and there seems to be this mystique that exists out there about men. Men are very simple. Fundamentally, though different in ethnicity, different in our languages, different in our religions, different in our history, goals, dreams, and therefore preferences. Generally speaking, most men are more the same than we are different. With regards to sexual relations, most men, on the average, have the same preferences. There are some exceptions to such preferences, but such exceptions are usually statistically insignificant. Thus, it's possible to make a bold statement that men generally want the same things. The confusion that most women seem to have regarding our preferences and our likes and dislikes, I believe, stems from the confusion and the wrong attribution to two separate marketplaces as being the same. Specifically, in relationships, and more specifically, in heterosexual relationships, there are two marketplaces for men. We are generally buyers or consumers of women, a woman's beauty, a woman's intelligence, a woman's presence, a woman's inspiration, a woman's admiration, affection, affirmation, but more importantly, a woman's body. As consumers, we go into two separate marketplaces for very separate reasons. We start in one and we move to the other sometimes. Some of us start in one marketplace and we stay there for as long as we can. The two marketplaces are the dating marketplace and the relationship, or what I call the marriage marketplace, to use the traditional language. In the dating marketplace, you would find that men are more dissimilar in their tastes and preferences than they are in the relationship marketplace. For example, in the dating marketplace, you can assume that to be a buffet. Sometimes we want Chinese food, some other times we want Italian food, some other times we just want a Greek soup. In the relationship marketplace, we're more selective. We're selective because what we order is what we will have every single day. So we tend to choose not what looks the flashiest, but what will make us not regurgitate and throw up or become sick. In the dating marketplace, primarily, the main driver is sex. Men simply want sex. The dating marketplace has been decentralized and deregulated so poorly, in my opinion, so much so that chivalry, decorum, good manners, awareness of the importance and the rarity of a woman's value has been decimated and devalued. So, the interaction between men and women today is seen no different to the interaction between a buyer and a seller, with the currency of exchange determined by both parties and the price paid based on what the two parties believe is fair. Sometimes that price is nothing, and some other times that price costs more than nothing. Sex being the commodity has become a race to the bottom, and so in the dating marketplace, a man's taste is very simple. We just want sex. We put that taste preference into a hierarchy. We want the most attractive woman that we can afford. But if we cannot get the most attractive woman in the marketplace, we will settle for the least attractive woman that will have us. Men generally mate horizontally amongst the social hierarchy and downwards in the dating marketplace. We will also attempt to mate upwards, recognizing that the upwards pursuit comes with more costs. Now, the game we play is to attain and achieve our sexual desires at the least cost possible. And therefore, we know intrinsically that beauty costs, attractiveness costs. We know youth comes with a price. There's something that we've always heard from antiquities and history and ancient writings, which was the virgin's price. The virgin's price was supposed to be the highest price payable for what was considered to be purity, youth, purity, beauty. So in the dating marketplace, we will take whatever we get. Now, one of the best analogies to understand how the dating marketplace works is to observe a man who is a single man in a bar or in a nightclub. He walks into the space at 10:30 p.m. He sees a beautiful woman. She is the most beautiful woman in the space. And let's say on a sexual marketplace ranking, she's a 10. Let's give her that. Let's say she's perfect. She's 21 and she's gorgeous. Absolutely gorgeous. He walks up to her and proposes to get her attention first, and hopefully move that forward into some form of an exchange, a sexual exchange. She says no. She says, "You're not my type." Now he walks into that space wanting the highest level and the best standard available. She rejects him. He drops his standard from a 10 to an 8. If she gets rejected by an 8, he drops his standard from an 8 to a 6. And he will continue dropping his standards until he finds someone willing to give him sex. Those are men, that's how we operate. So in the dating marketplace, what we really want is just sex. Obviously, to interact with you, there are certain things we want. We want you to be spontaneous. We want you to be fun. We want you to be excitable. We want you to be easy to get along with, to interact with. We don't want you to be too masculine, but we will tolerate the most irritating parts of you if we're guaranteed sex. We will do those things and tolerate such behaviors because we have no intention of dating you long term or perhaps meeting you long term. As a matter of fact, most men do not see your bad behaviors initially because the urge for sex can be so strong that what we have is lust in our eyes. Once we've penetrated you and once we've ejaculated, we come to what I call the Damascus Road. The scales fall off our eyes and we get to see you for who you are. In other words, we transform from Saul to Paul. And we want out as fast as possible. Sometimes even if you have a pleasing personality. Now, all of that is the dating marketplace. I have spent some time explaining the dating marketplace because if you were to take men from about 18 years up to about 50 years, there are more people and more men in the dating marketplace than there are in the relationship marriage marketplace. But let me transition to the relationship marketplace because the demands of a man is different. I categorize it into 3 different groups. The first is still sex. The second is serenity. The third is servanthood. They all begin with an S, quite easy to remember. The demands of sex are consistent with what he wanted previously. But there are some colorful palettes, variations to the original demand for sex in the dating marketplace. In the dating marketplace, men, we want quantity, variety, and if we can get quality, that's the icing on the cake. We want to be able to have and taste the fruits of all nations. We have no commitment, we have no obligation, and we've made no promises. In the relationship marketplace, we've made a promise. We've made a commitment. So what we want is frequency, intensity, quantity. Very simple. Frequency, intensity, quantity. And if you can add a spice of passion to that, then that makes it all perfect. That said, remember, men, we do not want sex. We need sex. Women, on the other hand, they need intimacy and affection, and they want sex. So the concept of no is what men struggle with in relationships. Because once a woman and a man agree to an exclusive relationship, the woman controls and has the monopoly on sex. Now, let me dive slightly into the dynamics in the dating scene. Let's assume I was a single man and I was dating. I'm in the dating marketplace. It would be to my advantage to have a few plates spinning. Why? Because if I do so, I gift each person the gift of insecurity. On Monday, I can see Jane. On Tuesday, I can see Sarah. On Wednesday, I can see Martha. On Friday, I can see Vashti. And perhaps on Saturday, if I wanted to, I can see Elizabeth. Therefore, I have a few plates spinning. I have the best of all worlds, and I have no issues. Whenever I see Mary, considering I see her once a week, she's bound to be on her best behavior, excited to see me, hoping and wanting that our relationship will blossom into something more permanent, so I do not have to see the other girls. The gift of insecurity keeps her on the straight and narrow and means that she seldom says no. And I don't have to beg, I don't have to bribe, I don't have to cajole, fight, demand, plead for sex. It's given to me at my wish, or it's given to me even before asking. In the relationship marketplace, you've made a decision as a man to be exclusive, and therefore the monopoly on sex comes from the woman you've chosen. Women understand this, which is why you tend to find there is a lot more complacency in relationships and women in relationships than you find single women. I have used this analogy so many times with friends I know, acquaintances I know, and even family members. A case in point, I have said, you're not as attractive, and I'm not referring to my relationships, I'm referring to observations I have made to friends and family, and I've spoken candidly. And in one instance I said, you are not as attractive as you used to be prior to the marriage or prior to the relationship. Before the relationship was announced, you made more of an effort. You dressed better, you dressed sexier, you were more excitable, you were more fun to be around, and therefore he was excited to be around you. Now you're living together and there are no kids just yet. He has more complaints about not having sex, about you not making an effort, about you not dressing as well as you used to, and the list goes on. The point of the matter is, and was, she no longer had to try because she had won the prize. And he was stuck in the relationship because he had made some promises. Now, had he remained single, whenever she wanted to be unattractive, he could simply say, I will call the next number. Someone will come and do the heavy lifting for you. I have no reason to want to date you or go out with you if you're dressed like you are. I want you to look good. If you don't want to, that's fine. I can go to the restaurant with someone else. That was the game that was played. That gift of insecurity is what keeps people on the straight and narrow. In relationship, it doesn't exist. Nonetheless, men simply want sex. So, the sex we want is frequency, intensity, and quantity. Ideally, to say yes more often than you say no. That keeps us happy. The second thing we want, most men want, is serenity. Serenity is a word that most people understand. Serenity is both an attitude and an aura. You can walk into a space and feel serene as a result of the behavior of the people, the atmosphere, the aroma, what you see, what you taste, what you feel, and what you say. Serenity in its simplest form means peace. Men want peace. We really want peace. The life of a man, despite the attempts by the Western world to paint modern men as unnecessary, buffoons, unworthy, toxic. The life of a man is hard. The concerns most men have, most women will never understand. The fears most men have, most women will seldom appreciate. So when we come back home, or when we are with you or around you, we want peace. We don't want to contend with you. Now, there is nothing so sad as waking up next to the enemy, or waking up with someone who is very adversarial. We go out to the world and we do battle with the enemies. When we come home, we want peace. We want a serene environment. More importantly, we want someone around us who understands the male nature. One of the words that women perhaps could hold on to very closely in relationships is the word timing. Timing. Yes, women think with their emotions, and we love that. Yes, men are logical, and we know that. Yes, there are things you might want to get off your chest, and we welcome that. We just want you to have the right timing. There are certain times when it's appropriate to engage in a dialogue, heated or not, and there are some other times when it's just wrong to bring up a topic. The concept of serenity is knowing how to change the mood, reading the energy. I refer to serenity in a similar word that I call attentiveness, meaning you're able to attend to the request without it being said. You're attentive to the needs. Serenity is peace, and that serenity extends beyond what you say and what you do to your behavior outside of the home. So I remember very well, in my early days of growing up, I was made aware very early of the importance of recognizing that I was of that name and came from the house of the Otey. The Otey family did not behave in a certain manner. Now, I got very frustrated at a young age. There were times when I was very keen to get into altercations and fights, misbehaviors, sometimes antisocial behaviors. But I always remembered that there was a name that I represented. And that name and the preservation of the reputation of that name was more important than whatever intrinsic value I may have extracted from misbehavior. And so I had to conduct myself in a certain way. There was a decorum expected of me. Now, we were not wealthy, and I did not come from wealthy parents, but it wasn't about wealth. It was about how you presented yourself in the public and to the public. So when men say serenity, the Proverbs 31 woman and the Proverbs 31, I think it's verse 10 to 31, explains the concept of a peaceful woman, one respected by the community, one who cares for the community, one who is seen by the community and held in high esteem. This simply means that your conduct, although you are an individual in the relationship, you being the woman, your mannerisms and your attitude to the world reflect on the man for whom you've chosen to be a helpmeet to. Serenity means you don't embarrass me. I'm not embarrassed by your past. I'm not embarrassed by your present. And I won't be embarrassed by your future. That is serenity. Now, number 3 is servanthood. When we hear the word servanthood, it irritates and evokes a negative emotion, especially amongst modern women. For men, it doesn't. My first job, I played a servanthood role to my supervisors. I understood my role. I understood my role in the company, in the team, and as a person. Servanthood means that you give yourself to something beyond yourself. And the best way I can describe this is to think of servitude in 3 different responsibilities. For every man, and I hope most men, perhaps I should speak about myself, but I hope every man follows this, what I call a hierarchy of importance. For me, my purpose comes first. I come second. If I am with you, you come third. If I have children with you, my children come fourth. My purpose before myself. Now, depending on your specific religious affiliation, you might reverse that. You might put some items on the higher up on the list. It could be your religion comes first, and then your purpose, and then yourself. But the point is that my purpose comes before me. Because if I do not fulfill my purpose, I cannot be happy. And if I cannot be happy, I can't serve you, the lady, and I can't serve the kids, who I am responsible to and for. A servanthood attitude means that you submit to, first of all, his purpose, his goals, and his vision. Number 2, servanthood means that you serve him as an individual. In this case, as the person who is the leader in the relationship. It's simply a hierarchy of authority. You're serving the position. You're not really serving the individual per se. You're serving the position the individual occupies. Number 3, should both of you choose to reproduce offsprings, you serve the kids. In other words, you serve his offsprings. And number 4, just to put an additional caveat, you serve the community. Most men want that hierarchy of servanthood. Now, we haven't talked about you being on your knees scrubbing the kitchen floor, and we have not talked about you being in the kitchen preparing the feast for his drunk friends and his drunk neighbors. No. We're talking about the attitude of servanthood, how to think about servanthood. Do you understand his vision? Are you committed to his vision to be a helpmeet, to help him fulfill that vision? Have you committed to the position he occupies in the relationship? Have you agreed to what would be the products that are produced by your union, children? And have you committed to the community? Now, the reason men, and I particularly include number 4, is because we die early as men. We do not outlive women, generally speaking. And most men understand that I can have a woman who has been loving, kind, loyal to me. One who served my vision, served me and my position, and served my children. But if she has not served the community, again, I'm going back to human nature. The moment I am out of the picture, all of my wealth, all of my possessions, all of my family and unit will be under threat. The people who protect my productions, who protect my precious wife, and who protect my offsprings will not be the woman. Because the enemies encircle wherever there is weakness. It will be other men in the community who stand firm and say, that is the product of Mensa, and therefore we will protect it with our lives despite the cost. They can only do that out of respect, 1, for me, and 2, respect for the woman that I chose and how she's interacted with the community. Hence, servanthood does not stop with the family or the unit. It goes beyond. Having a caring interaction with the other women in the community, the other men in the community, and serving them respectfully with your mannerisms and your behavior. If you can do that,